about firearms and what our handbook says, and it's right there for you. It's on page 26 in your handbook. It says possessing or using firearms, explosive, fireworks, or other dangerous devices on the university's property or at a university function. And so if you're having obviously some kind of an approved event, which is the only kind you can have, we run through Natalie and on the activity request form, and maybe it's a camp out or something like that, this policy would apply to you. And so if you were wanting to, maybe it's a men's weekend with your fraternity and you wanted to have sporting plays or something like that, by this policy, it says that would not be allowed. If you ever had questions about that, you can certainly come talk to me and we could visit about it. But I wanted you to be aware of that particular policy related to firearms. The next one on your handout just talks about all the different types of things that are prohibited. And again, this is primarily prohibited on campus at Howard Payne, so we don't allow any of those things to be stored in rooms or automobiles. Okay, group travel outside of the area. And I will say, some of you might be wondering, why on earth are we here for this? We don't do a lot of these things. Last spring, the Task Force on Organization Requirements, this was a student government appointed group that got together and had various representatives on it from organizations. They created a survey, and maybe some of you in this room probably took it, but every organization took the survey and kind of just told us all kinds of things about, do you attend IOC? Do you get an operating budget from the university? Do you charge membership dues? Do you fundraise? There was all kinds of questions. And there was also a question about, how often do you meet? Do you do activities on or off campus? Do you travel? And so based on some of the group's answers to those questions, that helped us decide on which groups should attend this event today. So not every single student organization is here today. There were a few that just didn't really do any of those things, so there probably wasn't a need. But many of you, if not all of you, checked travel on your survey. And so I want to go over a few just points of safety regarding traveling for a moment. Obviously, all university rules, regulations, policies do apply for you as students, as your group, wherever you're going to be traveling. An advisor should always be present at all of your events and activities, and even on your trips. So if you're going to be going on a trip, a retreat, to a conference, anything like that, an advisor must be along. And then it's recommended that you look into insurance. I've got a short-term policy that I can show you. You could look into purchasing for the number of people going and the days of your event. It's very inexpensive. Our Baptist Student Ministry does it for every trip they go on. They're required to. And so it's the same carrier that they use. So I would be happy to share that with you. If you ever have questions, you can come to my office. Okay, some safety tips. Obviously, you want to obey traffic laws, speed limits, and everything else. Obviously, don't drive under the influence. Wear seatbelts. I know it's always tempting, sometimes when you're caravan driving and you've got several cars in your group to horseplay and pull up alongside one another and kind of play games, but that can get very dangerous, so I would advise against that. You're college students, and I know you all don't sleep as much as you will when you're older. Just ask the advisors in the room will tell you that we require more sleep these days. But just if you know you're going to be going on a trip with your group, make sure your drivers are well rested. That's very difficult. You know probably how that is. You've probably been there and you just feel like you can't hardly stay awake and your eyelids are so heavy and it would feel like nothing would feel better in the world than to fall asleep at that moment. Has anybody been there with me? You don't want to be there, especially by yourself, but especially with a group of people where you're carrying that precious cargo. Notify a designated contact person before you leave and once you arrive at your destination. Avoid driving when conditions are hazardous, all kinds of things, ice, snow, fog, rain, and be prepared to stop. Just wait till the weather clears, or if fatigue is setting in, to check into a motel or to stop somewhere and get some sleep. plan your routes in advance. And obviously you want to carpool or caravan, whatever you can. The more cars you have, you're trying to keep together, just the greater likelihood of some kind of problem because you're trying to keep everybody together and then somebody doesn't make the red light. And you know, it's just better to be together as much as you can in as few vehicles as possible. You always want to have at least one other driver who's prepared to take over and rotate every couple of hours. And just have that person or somebody riding alongside in the front seat to just help keep the driver awake and alert. You want to have, I think I'm on different slides, aren't I? I don't know, like I've got one more slide to do that with it. Okay, I just skipped this one. Drive, break up your trip, get rest as you need to. Have a cell phone or two-way radios. Be reasonable about your departure and your arrival times, so that you're not feeling pressed to speed or anything like that because you're trying to get somewhere because you didn't allow enough time. And then try to never drive between midnight and 6 a.m. Just try to avoid that as you plan your trip. Okay, talk about this one. Just some good safety things to have in your car. Flashlight, fire extinguisher, maybe one of those air compressors that you can plug into your cigarette lighter, blankets, those kinds of things that you should have when you're traveling long distances. Be aware of taking medication that it's going to make the driver drowsy. Want to be sure that your vehicle is insured, registered with the state, inspections current, all that good stuff. It's roadworthy and safe. All right, behavior at group events. We're getting closer to the end here. Let me just ask, and open this up for a minute. What expectations should you have of yourselves and your peers when you are hosting some kind of event? What are we going to expect of one another?
All the student handbook.
Okay, good. So, and then knowing it would be a prerequisite to that. So make sure that people know what's expected and then they abide by it. Good. What else? Josh's answer was very good and broad, so it covered many things.
It's okay, you can say it wasn't good enough.
No, it was. It was actually great. If you do all that, you're probably in pretty good shape. Well, here's another question. How can you hold one another accountable? What are some ways to do that? Is it easier before something's happened or after it's taken place? Before, yeah. So have some conversations. That's why I want you need to. The law says it's expected. I guess the folks that wrote the bill were thinking about this. That it's a good idea to have these conversations ahead of time, so it'll be a lot less likely to have problems, but a lot easier to hold someone accountable because you can say, hey, look, you do this. Like we talked about this at our meeting last month. So that's good. We'll be thinking about those conversations because they're not always easy to have. It's not easy to hold your friends accountable, is it? But it's going to be asked of you. Well, again, right out of your student handbook, it says that organizations are to abide by all policies of the university and that members should be leaders and are to adhere to all the university regulations. And again, the violations committed by the organization as a distinct group or even by some individual members doing something together could result in disciplinary actions for the whole group. All right, next thing is adopting a risk management policy. How many of you know that your group did this last year? You made up some kind of a policy, that you maybe did the research, the band organizations did. You may have already had one, I don't know. Okay. Well, one of the things I'd like to have you work on this year, make it your goal, is to develop a risk management policy and then incorporate that into your constitution and bylaws. Make sure it connects with who you are as an organization, what you stand for. And I would suggest you get online and just kind of Google search a little bit and see what kind of examples you can find. I'm not asking you to